The internet just got hit with footage that may have changed the entire conversation around what really happened in Indiana's showdown with New York. And at the center of it all, Sophie Cunningham completely turning the narrative upside down. Because this wasn't just another preseason game, this was a nationally watched battle where a level of physicality was unfolding beneath the surface that the broadcast barely touched. The cameras caught the highlights, but they missed the war happening between possessions. They skipped over the off-ball contact, they downplayed the pressure being thrown at Caitlin Clark, and they certainly didn't capture how Indiana responded, but fan footage did. And once those clips surfaced, the reaction across the WNBA world exploded, because Sophie Cunningham didn't go viral simply because she knocked down shots. She went viral because she looked like an enforcer protecting territory. Possession after possession, she was carving out space, absorbing contact, setting punishing screens, cutting off defenders, and making it painfully clear that if teams planned to rough up Caitlin Clark, they were going to deal with her first. That's what sent the internet into overdrive, and Breanna Stewart, one of the league's biggest stars, got a first-hand look at why this Indiana team is beginning to develop a completely different identity. Not just skilled, not just explosive, physical, confrontational, unbothered, and maybe even intimidating. Welcome back to WNBA Pro, where the conversation goes deeper than box scores and way beyond media-friendly narratives. If you're here for watered-down takes and recycled talking points, this is the wrong place. Because today we're breaking down the viral footage surrounding Breanna Stewart's controversial off-ball contact, Sophie Cunningham's emergence as Indiana's on-court protector, what New York's defensive game plan was really trying to do, why Cunningham's contract suddenly looks like a steal, and how one post-game TikTok moment may have symbolized something even bigger, an emerging fever culture built on edge, swagger, and unity. Because what happened that night wasn't random. There was a trigger, a spark, and once you study the unfiltered fan angles the mainstream barely acknowledged, it becomes obvious why Sophie Cunningham started treating the floor like guarded territory. She wasn't overreacting, she was responding.
Kill the sound because it got copyright music. You guys see that? Did y'all? And now she throwing up her hands. She's throwing up her hands like she ain't just damn me. Boom. Lead forward and assault Sophie Cunningham, bro. Dirty fucking play there. That was a dirty play. Now, it looked like the referee actually might caught this. It says,
before Sophie Cunningham went into full enforcer mode, there was a moment that many fans believe lit the fuse, and it involved Breanna Stewart. Go back and watch the raw fan footage closely, because it tells a much different story than the broadcast ever did. As Cunningham works around the perimeter trying to fight through traffic, Stewart steps directly into her path. But what sparked debate wasn't simply the screen itself, it was how much contact came with it. This didn't look like a routine, stationary basketball screen to a lot of viewers. It looked far more physical. Stewart appeared to lean into the collision, driving her upper body forward and creating hard contact right into Cunningham's chest as Sophie tried to navigate through. It was the kind of play that instantly made people pause and replay it, and what made it even more controversial was what happened next. Stewart immediately put her hands up, looking toward the official as if nothing unusual had happened, as though the collision was incidental. But fans online weren't buying that interpretation, because in slow motion, and especially from those fan shot angles, many saw a play that pushed well beyond ordinary off-ball physicality and crossed into something far more aggressive. And that's where the debate exploded. Was it veteran gamesmanship? Was it excessive contact disguised as a screen? Or was it the exact moment Sophie Cunningham decided enough was enough? Because after that sequence, her energy shifted. And from that point forward, she looked less like a role player running sets and more like a bodyguard protecting territory.
so this is a slow motion version of it. So as you guys can see here, just look at it. Boom, bro. Boom. Just completely look at Breanna Stewart's face. And this is who we got in charge of negotiating the CBAs. Look at this. Like, how do something like this happens
When you break that sequence down frame by frame, it becomes easier to understand why it ignited so much controversy. The details are what people keep debating. Breanna Stewart isn't just holding position on the perimeter, she's still moving as contact develops. Her momentum carries forward, her body leans into the collision, and her arm extends away from her frame in a way many viewers felt made the contact far more forceful than a routine off-ball screen. That's why the reaction has been so divided. Some see it as hard-nosed, playoff-style physicality. Others believe it drifted into the territory of a non-basketball play. And that's exactly why the clip exploded online. But maybe the bigger story is how Sophie Cunningham responded. Because she didn't sell the contact, she didn't look at the officials, she didn't stop to complain. She absorbed the hit, held her balance, stayed composed, and looked ready to answer with physicality of her own. And that response said everything. Because Cunningham clearly understood what was happening. She recognized the Liberty weren't just defending Indiana schematically, they were trying to disrupt them physically. They knew matching the Fever's pace and open floor transition was a dangerous proposition, so the pressure ramped up, the contact got heavier, the possessions got chippier, and much of that energy seemed directed at Caitlin Clark. That's what made Cunningham's reaction so telling. She wasn't reacting emotionally, she was reading the tone of the game and deciding Indiana wasn't going to be pushed around.
About right here. So this was Sophie here. But watch how this girl is hacking Caitlin Clark. Watch this. Caitlin Clark is getting hacked. Watch. Watch. Look at her hacking Caitlin Clark all over. Now watch Sophie. Boom. Now, when Sophie...
Study the way New York defended Caitlin Clark, and you start to see why the temperature of this game kept rising. The pressure wasn't subtle, it was constant. Defenders were crowding her catches, riding her with hand pressure, bumping her off routes, shrinking every inch of operating room she tried to create in the half court. Every possession looked like a test of how much contact officials were willing to allow, and many believed the Liberty were betting that line would keep getting pushed, that the whistles would stay quiet, that Clark would have to survive through relentless physical disruption. And that's when Sophie Cunningham changed the equation, because once she recognized what New York was trying to do, she responded in the most Sophie Cunningham way possible. She started imposing herself. The cameras caught it over and over, bone-rattling screens, hard seals, forceful positioning, and the kind of physical tone setting that makes defenders think twice before crowding your star. She wasn't just running actions, she was sending a message. Every screen felt deliberate, every bit of contact carried purpose, and at times she was practically clearing traffic around Clark with a level of edge and aggression you rarely see sustained over a game. That's when Indiana stopped looking reactive and started looking like the team dictating the fight. What New York may have viewed as a way to wear Clark down started turning into fuel for the Fever's response, and Cunningham became the one flipping that strategy against them.
Sophie didn't look like she leaned into her, bro. Let me see. Nope. I don't think she did. I don't think. Oh, and old girl flopped. Look at this damn flop. She threw her arms up and everything. Now, if we go back and look at what happened to Sophie, like people want to say Sophie did the same.
There was one moment in particular that absolutely detonated across social media. The clip was everywhere. Caitlin Clark was attacking downhill, turning the corner into the lane when a Liberty defender started closing from the blind side, looking ready to disrupt the drive. And then Sophie Cunningham arrived, out of nowhere. Rotating in from the weak side, she planted one of those old school no-nonsense screens that instantly changed the possession and lit up the internet. This wasn't some soft brush screen to free a ball handler. She owned the space. She stepped in, put her body between Clark and the help defender, and created a wall with the kind of force and conviction that felt straight out of a throwback era of basketball. The arena reacted. The internet exploded because it looked less like routine execution and more like protection. And what happened next only made the clip more viral. The Liberty defender hit Cunningham's screen, threw her arms upward, and went tumbling backward in dramatic fashion, clearly trying to sell the contact. That reaction became a huge part of the debate. Was it a flop? Was it a perfectly legal screen that caught a defender off guard? Or was it simply Sophie Cunningham announcing that no one was getting free access to Caitlin Clark? Whatever side people took, one thing was obvious. That sequence changed the energy. It became the moment many fans pointed to and said, this is why Cunningham matters. Not just as a shooter, not just as a role player, but as an enforcer who brings an edge Indiana feeds off.
Look at Sophie. Sophie ain't flopped. She immediately, Breanna Stewart, a big gal. Look, she ain't throw her hands up. See, there's a big difference. See, there's a big difference. Watch this one here. Look, she flopped.
Now compare that viral flop sequence to the earlier collision Sophie Cunningham took from Breanna Stewart, and you understand why fans reacted the way they did. When Cunningham absorbed that hard contact, she didn't collapse looking for a whistle. She took it, stayed upright, and kept playing. Later, on a legal Cunningham screen, a Liberty defender hit the floor trying to sell contact. And for a lot of fans, that contrast said everything. One looked like toughness, the other looked theatrical. That's a big reason the clip exploded online. Suddenly, people weren't just talking about Sophie Cunningham as a role player. They were calling her Caitlin Clark's protector, her on-court bodyguard, the emotional enforcer behind Indiana's identity. And honestly, there's a bigger reason that idea resonated, because the rest of the league sees something changing in Indiana. This team is no longer easy to push around, and Sophie is a huge reason why. Last season, Caitlin Clark absorbed relentless physical punishment, bumps, grabs, body blows, constant contact, night after night, and many believe that wear and tear played a major role in the injuries that derailed her season after only 13 games. That's part of what makes Cunningham's return feel so important, because now Clark has someone matching that energy, someone answering it, and Sophie didn't get back here easily. 9 brutal months recovering from an MCL tear, months of rehab, months wondering if the knee would respond the same, months rebuilding trust in every cut, every plant, every sprint. Then Indiana brought her back on a 1-year, $665,000 deal that suddenly looks like one of the biggest bargains in the league. And at Barclays Center, she showed exactly why. Efficient scoring, big momentum threes, physical defense, a positive plus-minus. But beyond the numbers, she restored a tone, an edge, a presence. And yes, her style comes with controversy. Those bruising screens live right near the line. There will be games where officials don't love it. There may be technicals, there may be drama, but there's no denying what she changes strategically. Because when opposing teams know roughing up Caitlin Clark could mean Sophie Cunningham responds with equal force the very next possession, they think twice. That matters. That's the enforcer effect, and fans saw that swagger spill off the court too. After the win, Cunningham's viral TikTok celebration lit up social media, lip-syncing in a New York hotel room, showing off the repaired knee, calling for wins in the chat. And honestly, that clip captured her perfectly. Competitive, unfiltered, fearless, fun, exactly the kind of personality helping shape this fever culture. Which brings up a very real front office question. How long can Indiana keep a player like this on a short-term bargain? Because if Sophie keeps performing like this, other franchises will absolutely notice, and players who bring toughness, chemistry, leadership, and production do not stay undervalued for long. Lose a player like that, and you're not just losing rotation depth, you're losing identity. That's why an extension conversation may need to happen sooner rather than later, because every team on Indiana's schedule is going to feel her presence this year. Sophie Cunningham looks back, and she looks like she came back angry, which may be the scariest development of all for the rest of the WNBA, and with Caitlin Clark operating beside an enforcer like that, Indiana suddenly feels much harder to rattle. Massive shout out to everyone supporting the channel and pushing for deeper basketball breakdowns. If you love this gritty physical side of the game, hit subscribe. Drop your prediction below. Was Sophie Cunningham's bodyguard mode the biggest storyline of the weekend? And what was your favorite moment from her viral performance against New York? Because with Dallas up next, this conversation may just be getting started.